everyone. I'm Adam Brown, and this is Shell Point Today for Wednesday, December 3rd. On today's show, it's nearly the end of the year, and that means it's time to tally up your volunteer hours. Melody Desilets will explain what you need to do. And we'll take you behind the headlines for an in-depth conversation with former newspaper columnist Dan Warner of Turbin. But first, the Susie Q heads out onto the waters of the Caloosahatchee River tomorrow for a trip to Cape Harbor. Enjoy lunch at either Rum Runners or The Joint. These scenic lunch cruises take place every Thursday through December for just $5. The Susie Q raises its anchor at 11 o'clock, returning to Shell Point around 2, and sign-ups are required. The holiday season officially gets underway here at Shell Point tomorrow night with the annual Christmas tree lighting ceremony and the Shell Point Holiday Singers Winter Wonderland concert. The festivities get started tomorrow evening at 5:45 with entertainment in the administration courtyard, followed at 6:30 by the tree lighting ceremony in the amphitheater on the island. End the evening with a joyous holiday concert by the Shell Point Singers in the village church at 7:15. For more information or to sign up for any of the activities we've talked about, stop by the Island Service Desk in the Resident Activity Center or call 454-2282. Or you can call the Woodlands Service Desk at 454-2054. Each year, hundreds of residents here at Shell Point take advantage of all of the volunteer opportunities the community has to offer. And each year, those hours are tallied up to ensure that Shell Point maintains its nonprofit status. Volunteer Coordinator Melody Desilets is along to explain what you need to make sure you do to make your hours count.
Hi Shell Point resident volunteers, I am Melody Desilets, Volunteer Coordinator here at Shell Point, and I am so proud to say that we completed another successful calendar year of volunteering, and it's all thanks to you with your generosity and your time commitment to those volunteer roles that are so important. Now I'm here to talk about volunteer hours, which I'm sure you've heard me talk about before. Those volunteer hours are so important for our rating in our not-for-profit status as a CCRC, which is a continuing care retirement community. Now, in order to turn in those hours, you may already see a binder at your place of work. You just fill in your name, the position that you do, and the hours that you complete. Now at the end of the calendar year, I'm looking for the grand total of hours from January 2014 through December 2014. And a form looks like this. If you don't have a binder where you currently volunteer, you can pick up one of these forms at either service desk, either here on the island or at the Woodlands Commons. Now in order to fill out this form, as I had said before, you fill out your name, your address, the position that you're currently volunteering in, and you fill out those hours through the days of the month. Now the grand total for 2014 is the most important part, and you would fill that out at the bottom and send it in to me in the Resident Activity Center here on the island. Now the volunteer hours range based on position, but if you do have any question regarding keeping track of your hours, please connect with me, Melody, at 454-2290. Now, positions may range from the Shell Point Singers to the Stamp Ministry all the way to court reps. And no position is too small, and we will take all those hours. So again, I appreciate you for who you are and what you have done. Just to give you a little status update, for volunteer hours for 2012, we did 104,000. Now for 2013, that number popped up to 115,000 volunteer hours, and it's all because of you. So thank you so very much for what you do day in and day out. You matter, and I look forward to inviting all you who turn in your volunteer hours to a wonderful party. You'll receive a personal invitation from President Peter Dice. So we look forward to serving you and having a party for you. Thank you again for all that you do.
For hundreds of years, newspapers have been a trusted source for getting you needed information about current events. And for many years, Turbin resident Dan Warner was a part of bringing those stories to you as a newspaper columnist. Shell Point today sat down with Dan to hear about his distinguished career.
I was born in Cleveland, Ohio, but to a single mother and with 5 other children. So when I was 2, I was sent off to relatives because there wasn't enough money to feed all of us. When I got into high school, I began to have some success with school assignments which required writing. And I got praise from teachers. Nothing motivates like praise, you know. And I decided fairly quickly, this is for me. You know, this is what I can do. The assignment was to do a man on the street. I decided I'd do it about the basketball season and talk to students about how they thought we'd do and such. And I discovered that they weren't horribly articulate. So I'm sitting there thinking, you know, this isn't going well. So I just started getting creative in my writing, and so I wrote this piece. And I turned it in, and a couple of days later, the teacher came to me and asked my permission to use it in the school paper. Obviously, I was thrilled and flattered, and then I was off. That was it. And it's almost fate. I mean, I wasn't really suited for anything else. You know, I wasn't suited to write novels. This was a perfect fit. When I came out of the Army, and Janet and I were going to get married when I got out, but I went looking for a better newspaper and a better job, and I got a job in Akron, Ohio, Akron Beacon Journal. In those days, it was considered to be a very, very good newspaper, and it was owned by John Knight, who later had a chain. I worked there for 10 years. The staff was outstanding. I learned an awfully lot, and I did pretty well there. And as the years went on, I was surprised that I was doing as well as some of these people who I'd idolized. You know, and I became a Sunday editor. I edited the Sunday magazine with, you know, investigative pieces and features and that kind of thing. And that was fun, you know, because you did interesting stuff. It was in 1968, and there was a race riot in town. There were race riots over the country that year, that summer. And I had known that it was likely it would come to Akron. I wrote a riot plan for coverage. I was in the office for 13 days, never left, except to go a couple blocks down the street to a hotel to catch some sleep. We were sort of just hanging around, waiting for the riot to start. It was dusk, and you know. And I looked up and I saw 7 black men at my desk. So I went out, and the first thing I noticed was that they were well dressed and they were old. They were old men. And I asked them what I could do, and they said they were the elders of the community, and they could stop this riot if we could convince the mayor to pull out the National Guard. And they said, if you can get the National Guard out of there, we can go down the streets and stop the riot. So, you know, that's not my job. You know? I mean, my job is to report the news. You know, you can do that with the mayor. And they said, no, he'd never listen to us. You know, we're nobodies. I called the mayor, and we had a meeting real quick. And long story short, after a bunch of back and forths, he agreed. And these guys left. The sheriff came up to me. He was furious. And he said, well, you want to go out into 5 Points with me? And that was where the riot central. And I said, sure. White van came screeching down the street, screeched to a halt. 2 black guys got out of it, went to the back door, opened it, pulled out sound equipment, and started a street dance. And the riot was over. I was a couple of 3 miles away from the office. The only way I could get there is walk back. So I walked back through all the black neighborhoods, and every couple blocks or so, some young man would come up to me and say, "You okay, man? We've been told to take care of you." And they did this all the way back to the office. And it was sort of amazing. It was in Lawrence, Massachusetts. The newspaper was the Eagle Tribune. It was a regional paper. It served this old industrial city plus a larger area in Massachusetts and an area in New Hampshire. And we were pretty well known because, frankly, of the New Hampshire primary. I got a call from the managing editor, who was second to me. They caught Willie Horton. And I'm not allowed to swear, right? And I said, who in the devil was Willie Horton? You know? And he says, well, he's the guy who 10 years ago murdered a 15-year-old kid, and these three guys came in and they robbed him and they murdered him and they stuffed his body in a trash can. And they were caught and they were sentenced to life in prison without parole. That was 10 years earlier. And Willie Horton was one of those. Lo and behold, we find out he's out of prison. And he had gone to Maryland, where he had captured a woman and her boyfriend, and there was this manhunt going on that we didn't really know about because it was in Maryland. He was out on a weekend pass. Now, he's sentenced for first-degree murder to life without parole, and he's roaming the streets on a pass. Okay. Nobody knew that this was happening, you know, that they were letting first-degree murders go out on the weekend. And we spent a year trying to find out how this came to be, why it came to be. This became an issue in the presidential campaign because George Bush did a video of revolving prison doors in Massachusetts and blamed Michael Dukakis for it. When we did this, we had no political intent. We didn't, that wasn't, except the governor stonewalled us too. Dukakis did nothing. So the knock against him that he was soft on crime was true. You know, not in the way they said it, but it was true. And we stayed out of that. Anyhow, he lost the presidency. So then it became a national story, and it became pretty well known. My take on Pulitzer is if you do Pulitzer quality work and then get lucky. You know, about that time a Wire story came over and the newsroom just erupted, and we had really done a good job. So we came down to retire. I like doing a column. I'd done it. I've done it for like 44 years now. So I just made an appointment with the news press, went in, showed them samples, and they bought it. What I tried to do was to get people to think and to look at themselves. And I did a lot of warm human stories that frankly I'd like to get back to more. I try to approach even current issues. I try to approach them from a point of view nobody else approaches them from. You know, not this is right and this is wrong, or this is Republican and this is Democrat, but from, you know, are you thinking of the big picture here? You know, I mean, what are we really talking about here? You know, I mean, we got this scandal with Trey Rado going on, you know, all the angst, all the terror, all the horror. So I said, I can't write another one. So I wrote about a nice little warm story about Thanksgiving. Hi. It was only one word on the card, hi. There was no syrupy Hallmark moment and no long heartfelt message from the sender, just the one word, hi. And the sender's signed first name. He had written the word, signed his name, put the card in an envelope, addressed the envelope, stamped it, and sent it off in the mail. It was an act of bravery, given the identity of the soon-to-be recipient. The card went to his brother, the brother he hadn't spoken to in 35 years. That is how long their dispute kept molding, coldly, silently, a searing anger on both sides. The brother who received the card called the sender on the telephone. Let's meet, he said. We will go to lunch, said the sending brother, naming a restaurant they had frequented many, many years ago. They agreed upon a Saturday, and the brother who mailed the card drove more than 2 hours to his brother's home, carrying with him a brown paper bag full of produce from his garden. When he arrived, his brother introduced him to his family and showed him his house, yard, and garden. They went to lunch together in the same car. They dined and talked and talked and talked. 3 hours later, they left the restaurant and drove back to the receiving brother's house. On the way, the sending brother raised the question both of them had avoided it in their long conversation. Do you remember, he asked, what started our fight? Because I don't. I don't either, said his brother. And even if I did, it wouldn't matter. They went back to the house. The brother who had lived there went to the garden and picked some produce for the other brother to take back, and they parted to meet again and again and again. Hi. It started with a hi and a hurting, melting heart. How many of us today need to say hi to someone? That's the kind of thing I like to do. As a columnist, one of my core beliefs is that you get back what you put out. And I found that in terms of reader reaction, but then I got to thinking in terms of everything in life. Is what happens. And it's not just a bromide or something to be nice, it's true.
Now it's time to cover all of today's happenings, menus, and Village Church connections.
Hi, Shell Point. I'm Caitlin Van Scoy, and this is Melody Desilets. Melody, can you believe it's already December?
I absolutely cannot, but of course, holiday preparation is happening all around us. Are you ready for the holidays?
I am so ready. I'm in the spirit. I'm a little full from Thanksgiving, but I am ready for Christmas. We start the morning off at 7:45 a.m. with men's Bible study meeting in the Osprey Room on the island. At 8 a.m., men's match play doubles tennis will be meeting at the tennis courts at the Woodlands. Lily and Company Jewelers will be here at 8:45 for their weekly jewelry service at the Resident Activity Center on the island. Resident Council will be meeting at 8:45 in the Social Center on the island. We have two options for 9 a.m. We first have Jurassic Travel meeting with residents in the egret room on the island. Also at 9 a.m. we have the watercolor group with Phil Hilton in the art studio on the island. The card making and scrapbooking group will be meeting at 9:15 in the island tunnel. 10 a.m. we have ladies Bible study meeting in the Osprey Room on the island. Also at 10 a.m. we have men's match play doubles tennis at the tennis courts at the Woodlands. We have Model Yacht Sailing Club meeting at 10:15 at the Commons Lake at the Woodlands. And at 11 a.m. we have Shell Point Garden Society meeting in the Oak Room at the Woodlands. At 11:30 a.m. we have a Health Connections class, Agility and Flexibility, held at the Health Club on the island. And that finishes up our morning. Melody?
Thank you, Caitlin. Well, 1 o'clock brings us to chess being played in the library lounge of the Resident Activity Center. Now, the model train room is open, of course, Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays, so be sure to bring out all your family members and guests who may be visiting for the holidays. This is open from 1:30 to 3:30. At 1:45, we have a Health Connection Balance and Mobility Training Level 1 class being held in the Health Club. At 2:30, you'll hear the sounds of jazz and stuff being played at the Grand Cypress Room. At 2:45, the Healing Journey will be held in the chapel of the Village Church. At 3 o'clock, there's a few options for you. Bible study being held in the King's Crown Community Room or Health Connection Pilates Stretch in the Health Club. Also at 3 o'clock, we have the Memory Care Group meeting in the Behavioral Health part of the Medical Center. Sign up is required. At 3:30, we have a Health Connection Aqua, Agility, and Conditioning class being held at the Life Quest Aquatic Center. Now, if you're ready and willing to go out at 4 o'clock, we have pickleball being held in the pickleball court on the island. At 4:30 brings us to indoor bocce being held in the Health Club. And at 5:45, we have a church choir rehearsal at the Village Church. Now 7:15 brings us to prayer and praise as a wrap-up for Wednesday, and this will be held at the Village Church. Thank you so much for joining Caitlin and myself here today. We look forward to seeing you bright and early to tune in for Thursday's activities.
Menus for Wednesday. In the Crystal Room, the Crystal Platter is Salisbury steak with mashed potatoes and peas. The dinner special is the pasta buffet for $13.95. And the soup of the day is lima bean. In the Island Cafe for lunch, the special is an Italian sausage with peppers and onions on a roll with fruit for $7.25. The dinner special is grilled shrimp for $8.25. Dinner specials in the Palm Grill are grilled ribeye for $19.95 or sole almondine for $16.95. All menus are available 24 hours a day at www.shellpoint.net.
Welcome to Village Church Connections. I'm David Pavey, an assistant pastor, and I'm here today in my capacity as the administrator of the Alpha program. I've invited my friend Ken Axtell to be with me because I'm going to ask him a few questions in a few moments. Thank you for joining us. Alpha is a program that we run each year. This will be the 12th consecutive time over a 12-year period that we have offered the Alpha program here at Shell Point. It's sponsored by the Village Church and also by the Academy. The Alpha course will be offered in the Grand Cypress Room over a 10-week period beginning January the 13th and ending March the 17th in the new year. Space is limited, and so the sign-up period is right now, and you would need to sign up soon if you plan to attend. The signing up period ends on January the 5th. To register, please call the Village Church at 454-2147 as soon as you can. Space is limited, so don't delay. I'm happy to have my friend Ken Axtell here today. Ken, thank you for joining me. Now,
You're
you
welcome.
went through the Alpha course.
I did, along with my wife.
The two of you.
Oh, yes.
Which we encourage. Now, what was it that first attracted your attention to this course?
I think the thing or the information that first intrigued us was information found in the Village Church bulletins every week. And I had heard about, and my wife had heard about Alpha in other churches that we attended in other states. But the thing, shall I say, that really pushed us into deciding to do it was a comment from a dear friend of ours who said, "You must attend." So he's a graduate, and I think highly of this individual. And so Margaret and I talked about it and said, you know what, we can do it. At first it seems kind of difficult to think that you're going to commit 10 Tuesday nights, 10 consecutive Tuesday nights to Alpha. But it's doable, and we did it. We graduated.
Did you actually enjoy it, or just
We
have to
did.
persevere?
We did. What was most interesting about it was the video lecture by Nikki Gumbel, and that really was the highlight for us. In addition to that, of course, we had fellowship around the table as we ate, and we met some new Christian friends, some of whom we still see every week and say hi to, so we know their names, and hopefully they know ours.
That's wonderful. That seems to happen every year. How do you feel you benefited from Alpha? I mean, you were a church man. You've been to church for years. You weren't a stranger to the Bible by any means. So are there any practical ways in which this impacted your life?
I like to compare it, and I think my wife would agree with me, to compare it with a precious jewel that has been cut. And I think Nicky, every one of his lectures in the 10 consecutive sessions, kind of lit a different facet of that jewel, so that we really had a refreshing and a re-look at basic Christian beliefs. And to me, that was very important at this stage of life, to really sit down and have a review, have an opportunity to talk afterwards with folks in the breakout sessions. But it was really a renewal of basic tenets of the faith.
That's good. I sometimes think that people are a little more open to thinking through some of these things as coming here to Shell Point. Maybe they have more time, but they're certainly in a stage of life where they realize they're not going to live physically forever, and they want to be sure they're right with God. And so that testimony is very powerful to me. If people are considering Alpha, do you have any advice you'd give them?
If they're considering it, I think if they and their spouse, or he or she and the spouse, are considering it, I think they ought to talk about it together and make it a joint effort. If there is not a spouse, certainly consider it in your own mind and consider it something that ought to be done.
Sure.
Because my wife likes to use the expression of filling the car with gasoline.
Oh, yeah.
Every once in a while you have to fill it with petrol.
Yeah.
And that's her renewal,
Yeah.
is to fill her mind and her body with the Word of God.
That's really good. Ken, thank you for coming in and sharing these thoughts with me today.
You're so welcome.
Really
It's my
appreciate
pleasure.
it.
My pleasure indeed.
And thank you for tuning in to Village Church Connections.
We're glad you joined us for today's show. Tune in tomorrow for a great stocking stuffer that's great for your skin. And the season of Advent gets underway as we hear from missionary Janice Quinlan. Until then, this is Shell Point Today for Wednesday, December 3rd. I'm Adam Brown, and from all of us here at Shell Point TV, we hope you have a great day, and we'll see you again tomorrow.